interesting. Actually, in Secret of the Shadow Beasts, I was talking with a colleague of mine who'd read it, and she works with my organization's discussion programs for veterans. And she had noticed that in Secret of the Shadow Beasts, the story is about, it takes place in a world where Umbrai, shadow beasts, descend upon the human populations every night. They come out at twilight, at gloaming. They destroy anyone, they bite and poison anyone they can get, and then they disappear at dawn. And the only ones who can defeat them are kids who are immune to their venom. That doesn't mean they're constantly immune. It means they don't die instantly when they're bitten. And they can use a special metal, the Cascal iron, which is the only thing that can destroy them. These kids are gathered by their government to train to learn to fight this nationwide threat. And the protagonist, the story is about Nora Kemp, the protagonist who joins us a little bit later than she should, and learns about this world and learns about the secrets and the deadly monsters, bonds with her friends in the group. But one of the things that my colleague noticed was that in this world, these kids who are the soldiers, the warriors of their society, are protected by their organization. Their government takes care of them. Their government takes care of their families when the kids leave to train. And when the kids are done with their service, the government provides them with jobs, mental health services, anything they need, and takes care of them for the rest of their lives. And my colleague said, that's a great model for what our society should do. And I thought, yeah, that's one of the many, many things of the real life world that we have, the problems in real life that, filtered into that book, where I have a world that I think is better, despite the monsters in some ways, the way people treat each other. My colleague gave me the most wonderful compliment. She said, I'd like to live in that world. And then she said, without the monsters, but I thought, wow.
That's a fair trade. Yeah. I will take the monsters over Ted Cruz fist bumping when he takes away veterans' health care. That's fine. Bring on the spiders.
Yeah.
So, well, now here we are. We're talking Secret of the Shadow Beast, which is available now. So how did you come to decide that 7 would be the appropriate age to start for the children to start training to take on these monsters?
I was trying to think of how old a child could be to start that really, I don't hesitate to say thoughtfully, but to start this completely different life without being too much damaged by being removed from their families. I mean, age 7 would be a tough age anyway. I mean, thinking about my son as he was growing up, 7-year-olds are imaginative and starting to be really brave and out there in their worlds. I mean, that was a big period of confidence and growth that I saw among my son's friends when he was 7. And so I thought about that as a good age to begin. And of course, the government institution that starts training them takes care of them, shows them affection, but most of all shows them respect and helps them understand this important role that they're playing and that they will play once they're ready to do it. I was thinking about child psychology and what 7-year-olds really are. I have a lot of respect for kids.
7's the perfect age to go get ready to start fighting monsters. Don't start fighting them yet, but start getting ready.
Train, because they play games. They play training games. They start just by learning about what they're going to do, but not the scary stuff yet, not the stuff that, most people know about. In fact, everyone in this society knows about the threat of the monsters, and everyone knows that the people who train to fight them, to be the knights as they call them, are amazing, are heroic kids. And so it's a big deal. If you're 7 years old and you're feeling like you're out in the world, you feel that sense of empowerment that you do as a child at that age. And suddenly you're told, okay, you're immune. You have this potential to become one of them, one of these heroic kids. I could see that being a great age to start that. But then they play training games. So just things to help them get used to the kind of movements that they'll need to do once they're fighting, and make it just in their blood. Oh, here's my cat. You can come up here. Here she is.
Everybody loves a good
Laura.
cat cameo. What's
She'll
your
be
cat's
quiet
name?
now. But yeah, so they don't even have their weapons until they're older, until they're much older, actually. It's all games, it's all learning the history, it's all learning until they're around 10 or 11, and then they start using the weapons. But it's all athletics too. They start running seriously at age 7, and that was fun to write, because I have a running scene where my protagonist, who joins this group at age 12 because her father did not want her to join when she was 7, when she had her immunity test and was found to be eligible to enter this track to be a hero. He just didn't want that life for his daughter. But he dies from an umbri bite, and her mother almost dies. Her mother gets attacked by one when she goes out unwisely after dark. And so Nora decides on her own to go to offer herself, and finds that the government organization has been waiting for her and wants her still. So she has not had that whole training experience. And so I have a scene later on where everyone else, the team that she's part of, is doing they're running. They run laps for 20 minutes. Or is it 20 minutes? I can't remember now. Is it 20 minutes or 20 laps? But I think they run 20 laps, that's right, to start every day. And they run fast. I mean, they've been doing this since they were 7. They are really good athletes. Well, Nora has been playing video games and playing fiddle and knitting, and does not run, as she puts it. And so that was just a really fun scene to write, as somebody who has run and also not run, and certainly did not run when I was Nora's age, and remembering how miserable it was to be somebody who wasn't as athletic as everyone around me, trying to do cross country, trying to do well, and not doing particularly well. And so I kind of embodied that in Nora, and also had her say some things that I would have said if I had had the courage, such as, I don't run if I don't have to.
It's, I'm often struck by nobody who's been on this show, of course, but young adult authors that I've met in real life. And sometimes they'll admit that, yes, of course, I'm rewriting my high school history. This is the teenage years I wish I had had. Do you find that to be true sometimes of your childhood, if you had lived in a world, obviously, with monsters you had to go and fight?
Oh, definitely, definitely. There's so much wish fulfillment in all of my books. I mean, I'm dressed in my very first book. I always wanted a sword when I was a kid. My dad did fencing when he was in college. So there was this old fencing foil in our basement, and I discovered it one day. And fencing isn't, well, for me, actually, fencing was kind of fun. We only had one foil though, so that really wasn't much of a competition or anything. But I ended up hanging it on my wall above my bed. So I had a fencing foil as my sword. But I wanted a, massive, I love what Antonio Cabero did. Look at that massive broadsword on the cover. That's what I wanted. So I gave it to Dressed, and I gave her a background where she was incredibly athletic. I mean, she's like a Marine. I was thinking that when I wrote the second book. There's a tense scene where she's escaping from some people who are after her, and they're shooting crossbows at her, and she's climbing a cliff. And I thought, is this humanly possible? So I was looking things up online just to see about training. Could somebody actually do this who'd had her kind of training all her life? And it was possible, but she was like a Marine, to be able to stay calm and focus and push her body. That's so different from who I was, because I was a kid who read a lot. I did a little bit of exercise, but I wasn't by any means an athletic kid, and wrote a lot, and played video games. And that would have been fun. That would have been fun. The athleticism, but also the boundless confidence. That's another thing that kids have pointed out, that she's just so sure of herself. And I wasn't when I was a kid. That's one of the reasons I think that I wrote, to have a world where I could be in control and be sure of myself, be in charge, make the decisions, and feel really good about myself, which I didn't always when I was a kid. So it's nice to model how kids can feel that way. It's been interesting because a lot of students love Dress the most, understandably, I guess, the protagonist, but they really feel connected with her. I think even if they aren't as confident as she is, but I think she might be a bit of wish fulfillment for a lot of people.
It's been one of your favorite reader reactions to Dressed or to any of your books?
Oh, I mean, kids who come up. I was at a event last fall, and just the kids who came up who had read Madeline's Daughter before the pandemic and just wanted to tell me how much it meant to them, and just kids who came up with their book, their kind of battered, thumbed hardcover, and that was just lovely. And then this is actually really wonderful. There is a very serious 6-year-old who came up to me with his mom, and his mom told me that she'd been listening to the audiobook of Madeline's Daughter, and when he was 5, maybe he was 5 at the time still, and he had listened and he had enjoyed it so much that he insisted that they check out the second audiobook from the library. And I thought, wow, I have a 5-year-old reader. That is so amazing. But he listened to them both. He was very serious and very quiet, but his mom said he'd like to talk about the characters. He liked to talk about the action. So I thought, that's great. She's got quite a reader in her family.
He's 2 years away from being ready to train, right?
That's right.